Welcome to our service today. As you know, I am Louise Reeve, Chairperson and Worship Leader here at Newcastle on Tyne Unitarians. Today's service is on celebrating 60 years of the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund. As ever, we'll start by having our values statement. As we know, as Unitarians, we differ in our beliefs and we do not have the same set of beliefs that we all must hold to be together. But what we do have are values that unite us. This is what unites our community here at Newcastle on Tyne. We welcome all who seek the meaning of life and who believe that human spirituality is wider than any one tradition and deeper than any one set of opinions. With a respect for our Christian origins, we seek to explore all truths from all sources. Our fellowship gives us strength and encouragement in daily living. So, welcome to this special service of celebration. Unitarians have a long record of care for children in need. John Hounds of Portsmouth ran a school for ragged children in his cobbler's workshop. Mary Carpenter of Bristol championed the rights of children. Mill owners in Belper, Stile and Mansfield opened schools for children of their workers. Margaret Barr ran schools and teacher training for the children of the Khasi Hills in northern India. And some of you may actually have heard of one of our worship leader visitors, Elizabeth Fayers, talk about her visits to India. There is still a strong Unitarian tradition there. Now we have gathered here to celebrate another story here in the UK. The story of the work over the past 60 years of the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund charity. The story of holidays for many hundreds of children who would not otherwise have had them, and what the holidays have meant for those children. And now let us begin the worship by lighting our chalice. I can never quite get these matches to start. Let's try the longer ones. We will gather a store of love for children and marry love to wisdom, that the needs and thoughts of the child may be known to us. What more have we to give to one another than love and understanding? The beginnings of Send a Child to Hucklow. The Nightingale Centre, the Unitarian Holiday Centre at Great Hucklow, had its origins in the closing years of the 19th century. For those wondering, it is named for Florence Nightingale. It was originally a convalescent home for soldiers. For a good 50 years, as the convalescent home became a holiday centre, it served its purpose well, that of providing simple, inexpensive holidays in the countryside for thousands of children. Most of those came from Unitarian Sunday schools in the northern industrial towns and cities. But by the closing years of the 1950s, it was obvious from the decline in bookings that the Sunday schools were in decline, and there was no longer quite the same need in the churches for those holidays. In addition to the children's accommodation, a much more substantial building had been erected in memory of those who had died during the First World War. This building too was suffering a decline in bookings for its use as a general holiday centre, and the entire future of the centre was in doubt. In 1961, the Reverend Peter Godfrey wondered about the possibility of reviving the original idea of providing disadvantaged children with a simple countryside holiday based at Great Hucklow. Supported by fellow minister, the Reverend Flynn Pruce, he wrote the following letter to the Inquirer, the Unitarian magazine. It appeared on 9th December 1961. At this time of year, members of churches, chapels, Sunday schools, choir parties and so forth will be asking themselves what they're going to do with their special Christmas collections. With this in mind, we would ask your readers to give their financial support to a scheme we are arranging to send 20 children to Great Hucklow for a few days next April. One of the great things done by our homes at Great Hucklow was to acquaint children who rarely, if ever, left cities like Manchester and Sheffield with the beauties of the countryside. There are still children like this. The family service units work amongst them and know them well. The Manchester unit will be glad to suggest children who will benefit from such a holiday. All that is needed is the money to send them. 60 years later, there are still children like this. And now Ben is going to read a little of what some of the leaders of these holidays say. And you should turn toward the microphone.
What the leaders say. I am a teacher at Park Primary who had the privilege of leading the last group that attended Hucklow prior to the beginning of the pandemic, nearly 2 years ago now. If my memory serves me well, we got back to school on the Friday late afternoon, and come Monday the whole country had locked down. Our school had been very fortunate to attend the Hucklow experiences for a few years prior to my visit, and sadly I hadn't been involved until that particular year. I'm a relatively new practitioner in my 6th year of teaching, so I had other priorities like mastering my practice. Anyway, I had heard great things about the Hucklow experience from a colleague who had led 1 or 2 of the previous excursions, and as such I was eager to put my name forward to lead the experience. Each year we choose only our pupil premium, most deprived children from years 4 and 5 to go. What amazed me most during the visit was how appreciative and well behaved our children were all week in your complex. Our school is in a deprived area, and generally children's behaviours in school can be challenging, to say the least. However, this simply wasn't an issue on this trip. Evidently, the children were so grateful and considered themselves very lucky indeed to stay in such a lovely and remote location surrounded by countryside. Yes, they were excited and maybe even a little silly, but what children aren't? I know breakfast featured amongst other things as a highlight for the children, but having a cooked breakfast every morning is something they know nothing about. So it stands to reason why they are greedy little monkeys and gorged during the first sitting of the day. For me, the opportunity to get children out walking for miles on end in the countryside is an experience they won't forget. Yes, there may be lots of moaning and groaning, but it's a good life experience to walk through fields of cows and sheep, alongside flowing rivers, smelling, touching, seeing nature at its best. And guess what? They sleep well that night and don't have you up early the next morning. Finally, the experience always seems to come up in end of year 6 leavers assemblies as a main highlight of their school time at Park Primary. For all the reasons listed above, I applaud the people who fund this facility and make such wonderful holidays available for those who, under normal circumstances, would never likely gain such a memorable young life experience.
Another head teacher says, I am a head teacher at a primary school in Liverpool. Through the kindness of the Send a Child to Hucklow charity, we choose 20 children from the ages of 7 to 11 to go to Derbyshire each year. All the children we take are vulnerable in some way, and the majority of them have never had any real holidays. Through the kindness of the Trust, this is 1 week in the year when the children or the adults accompanying them do not have curricular targets, lesson objectives, school improvement targets, or national testing to worry about. What it does mean is that we can plan carefully for the real needs, strengths and concerns of the children, and aim to build confidence in team building, sharing and helping. At the excellent meal times at the Nightingale Centre, each member of staff sits on a table with 4 or 5 children, and we talk about the things they're going to do that day or about the things we have done. The children are given responsibilities with serving the meals and clearing up afterwards. We ask the children to change their table every meal so that they make new friends and learn to share stories and to listen and take turns when speaking. Thanks to the excellent facilities at the centre, The children play out a lot, but the difference is they are playing out in a landscape with a horizon that stretches as far as the eye can see. Children are always amazed at the size of the countryside around them. They can just run and run. We encourage them to recognise their own worth and feel valued in the group. This is a very valuable and powerful element to the whole week, and over the years we have seen some of our quietest and most vulnerable children blossom in Derbyshire. A skill that the children learn is being able to listen to and accept the praise of their peers, a skill which is much easier said than done. I can confidently say that in the years I have been privileged to be part of the Derbyshire holiday, it has helped the children feel happier and more comfortable in school. It has helped them in some small way to appreciate more their own worth, made them more confident, and helped their achievement and attainment in school. And it always helps to remind a group of 4 or 5 lucky, if very tired adults, why they went into teaching in the first place. And now, as we consider the work of the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund, which, as we've just heard, has existed for decades, sending children to the Nightingale Centre in Hucklow, who would not otherwise have had the chance to have a holiday. Let us now pray as we sit together and think of those in need of care. We're here to love each other, to love our frail, wounded selves, to love our broken world, and to love its suffering people. Let us worship so that love will flow. Give thanks for love. Love is caring that reaches out to someone who needs it, welcoming, enfolding, healing, protecting, and defending them. Love is laying down your life for them if that's what it comes to, and sometimes it does. Give thanks for the love that costs as well as the love that delights, because that is what love really is. Spirit of love, make us messengers of hope and compassion. May our words bring comfort to the sorrowful, challenge to the complacent, light to the benighted, and a liberating smile to the hard of face and heart. Spirit of adventure, be with us on the journey. Make us true companions to those who share the road, and true guides when it is given us to know the way. May it be so. Amen. I think it may be apparent that whilst the service does look at the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund, I've also, as many of us have been thinking about the conflict in Europe, and I suppose that was particularly in my mind, thinking of that prayer and that hymn. We're now going to hear from the children, and Diana and I are briefly going to swap places as she is going to do this reading, and I'm going to deal with the fact that my printer threw a fit on me this morning. I'm going to get the notices up on my computer for later.
What the children say. What did you most like about your week at Hucklow? The bed got me stuck in a cloud and the food took me to heaven. I enjoyed the delicious breakfast and the chef was very polite and he made a delicious dinner too. The adventures were the most magnificent thing ever. When I look at the views, I was speechless. We walked up a very high mountain and I'm scared of heights, but the view was great and I'm not scared anymore. This wonderful experience will change my life. It made me develop in lots of ways. This day will affect me being scared to leave home and anxious to try new food. So thanks from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate everything. I liked just waking up and having breakfast. Chatsworth House, gardens, maze, farm. My favourite part was feeding the goats. I enjoyed the caves, the gliders, and I most certainly enjoyed the food, especially the desserts. Friendly staff and comfy beds. If you could change one thing, what would it be? To stay one more night, to make it 2 weeks. The freezing weather and snow, but I did have fun in the snow. Shorter walks, getting the coach to Eyam instead of walking. Stay longer, I would like to stay for a year. Nothing, I loved it.
wondering, some of the children there mentioned the gliders. The Nightingale Centre in Derbyshire sits surrounded by hills, and it's a very popular spot for people who like gliding. There is a gliding club there. Every time I go, I keep meaning to stay for an extra day so I can go and try that. But assuming the British weather lets us, everything's a bit unpredictable outside. In fact, that's one of the reasons the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund does have collections. It is not only to pay for the accommodation costs of the children, but also to make sure they've got plenty of rainproofs and wellies handy, since many children come from families where they might not necessarily have those. I can also empathise with the little ones who like the desserts. That was always my favourite bit at school. I'm tempted to insert an unflattering comment about how it was also the only thing the kitchen was really reliably good at, which maybe explains why I love baking so much, but that's probably terribly unfair and I'll do the ladies. And with that slight digression, let us now turn our thoughts to meditating in celebration and thanksgiving. This is written by, again, Reverend Cliff Reid, one of our greatest Unitarian worship leaders. He says it has biblical verses, words of thanksgiving and reflection, and diary quotations. And the quotations from the diary are actually extracts from his own diary when he was at Hucklow working as a Send a Child to Hucklow Week volunteer. Let us take a moment to collect ourselves, to ground ourselves in this building, this place of worship that has been here for so many decades, that is the home of our Unitarian community here in Newcastle. And let us think of our Unitarian fellows across the UK and of the Nightingale Centre in Derbyshire, sat in the rolling hills. And let us think of this famous verse from the Bible. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called over a child, set the child in front of them and said, "Truly I tell you, unless you turn round and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself and becomes like this child will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever receives one such child in my name receives me." From the book of Matthew. We give thanks for the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund, for the holidays it has given to so many children who would otherwise not have had one. The kids arrive. We get them some tea, then take them round the big triangle, get them supper and a shower, then get them to bed. Some kids are still rebelling at bedtime. We give thanks for their wonder at things they have never seen, for good experiences and wholesome feelings. We walk to Peters Rock, Ravensdale and Monsall Dale. There the kids and leaders paddle about or swim. We give thanks for their questions and the opening of their hearts and minds to new and enriching things. We play hide and seek in the woods on the tour. A lad called Ronald attaches himself to me, expressing an interest in foxes. We give thanks for the cheeky smiles, for the laughter and joy, for the words of thanks that touch the heart. Birthday boy Brian, who is 8 today, gets a cake, presents and cards. We recognise the mischief that sometimes amuses and sometimes disturbs, testing the grown-ups and keeping them on their toes. We walk into Tideswell with the kids. We have trouble part of the way with cat's eye stone thieves amongst our ranks, pilfering in the shops. We give thanks for the fun the children have, for activities they enjoy, often for the first time. which send them to bed tired, content, and looking forward to tomorrow. We have sports and a very successful pillow fight competition. Andrew couldn't pillow fight for laughing. We give thanks for Great Hucklow's welcome to youthful, boisterous exuberance, and we give thanks for the Peak District's healing beauty, its things for children to do, and its places for them to go. We take our kids to a skating rink in Sheffield, where they have a great time and don't want to leave. And we acknowledge that there are sometimes tears and tantrums, rebellions and discontent, requiring the patience and understanding of those whose responsibility it is to care, no matter what. We proceed to Ribble Castle to see the zoo and have a picnic, which is something of a disaster. A few of the kids managed to crash the model railway. We give thanks for the vision of the fund's founders, for the generosity of its donors, and for the commitment and dedication, for the love of all who have given their time to work as staff, leaders, volunteers and helpers down the years to the present day. We leaders put on a pantomime, Cinderella, with Eric and I as the Ugly Sisters and Rosie as Cinders, which goes down very well. Then we give the kids chips in bed. And we give thanks for all those children who have brought their ebullience, their questions, their curiosity, their irrepressibility, their challenges and their fundamental innocence to Hucklow and made it all worthwhile. We pack up, board the coach and take the kids back after a fine week blessed with perfect weather, nice kids and a good team of helpers. And as Matthew writes, they brought children to him to lay his hands on them with prayer. The disciples rebuked the people, but Jesus said, "Let the children come to me. Do not try to stop them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." May every child's time at Great Hucklow be and have been an opening to the kingdom that is theirs by right. So may it be. Amen. The good we do. Now, I myself have not been present on a Send a Child to Hucklow weekend or week, which is probably a good thing because my crowd control skills are, let's go with minimal as an accurate description. I've got to be honest and say, personally, I wasn't really great at relating to children even when I actually was a child. Oh well. So this is mostly based upon the experiences of Tom Grimshaw, who is no doubt far better with children than I am and writes about his time at Hucklow. And he begins by saying, "I have to begin by sharing a shocking confession, and I hope you will not judge me too harshly, but the truth is that raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings, are not even actually a few of my favourite things. If anyone were ever to ask me, then none of them would end up on my desert island. But in the spirit of reason and tolerance, I would completely understand if they were to be on your list." Perhaps that's another subject we should think of for our subject. What would we all have on our desert island? I feel a service coming on in a few weeks, which will no doubt fill down. In that same spirit, I would ask you to bear with me as I share details of some of the places which prove to me the truth of Wordsworth's lines. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon my inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills. I think you all know the next line. You know, my heart always fills, unlike Wordsworth's, when we are on the A6 approaching the bridge just outside Buxton and espy Bill's Chip Shop. This is not because of Bill's undoubted contributions to the cholesterol level of the neighbourhood villages, but rather because it brings back the Friday night feeling of a forthcoming summer weekend in the Peak District, when the clock had stopped and the weekday frets and worries just faded away. Think back to a night at the barn at Flag when in pitch blackness we looked up at a sky blazing with stars and were filled with awe and deep wonder. And I have been lucky myself to go to the Nightingale Centre, and the skies there are really quite magical. As long as you remember to take your hat and your thermal gloves. But to see the stars spread out above you in a way we don't really get here in Newcastle in quite the same way, it's a wonderful experience. Tom comments, I could go on describing the gusts of wind at Whitby, so could I, along with the Goths, crowds and ice creams, or Great Orme in the rain. But I realise that even as I speak, your mind is travelling to your very own special spots. We've all got them. For some of us, it's Jesmond Dean. For me, being me, it's Black Car Rock, just off the coast of St Alps, where I was diving yesterday and swimming with a flounder. Such times could be deemed as holy days. Eric Glasgow in the Inquirer once argued, we are often overwhelmed by the oppressive continuity of it all, day after day passing in seeming and ending sameness and melancholy. And I do hope for the readers of that August magazine, he ended on a more cheerful note. Tom does have a more cheerful note and says, we need interludes of something special. Shakespeare, who was obsessed with rural Warwickshire, recalled in As You Like It, the delights of being in a holiday humour, a necessary escape from habit back into the land of impulse. At such times, we should endeavour to recover some of the carelessness, the innocence and the inquisitiveness which is endemic to childhood, so we may return to weekday life, renewed and invigorated in mind, in body and in spirit. Perhaps thankfulness is an appropriate term, not just for warmth and shelter and food, but also for this spiritual enrichment which can lift us up above the littleness of the everyday. But if our theme were to end there, would it not be simply an exercise in sheer self-indulgence? Our own fulfilment and satisfaction alone, on closer examination, would ring very hollow. Most major religions advise us that a good life is not about just celebrating our own good fortune. The Prophet Muhammad, the founder of Islam, reminds us our true wealth is the good that we do in this world. None of us has faith unless we all desire for our neighbours what we desire for ourselves. It is at this point that it is good to talk a little about the work of the Send a Child to Hucklow charity. For some, this may be talking to the converted, and he wishes to acknowledge the help people may have given in the past. For some, it is new, and Tom comments it's sometimes useful to revisit the familiar and to take a fresh look. For many Unitarians, the word Hucklow conjures up many, many happy memories of sunlit days in the quiet of the Derbyshire countryside, or possibly less sunlit and rainy, for Derbyshire, like all of England, is beautiful in the rain and wind as much as it is in sun. But I would contend that one of its special delights is that in the last 5 years, last full years before the COVID pandemic, it was used by 14 groups of children who would otherwise have just had no opportunity at all of time away from difficult circumstances of life. Hucklow is not simply the holiday retreat of the UK Unitarian movement, but it is above all a place where good is done. This 60th celebratory service of the charity narrates that, as we heard at the start of the service, in 1961, the Reverend Peter Godfrey, supported by Reverend Lynn Pruce, wrote a letter to the Inquirer Unitarian magazine appealing for donations to pay for a group of local disadvantaged children to have a holiday at the Nightingale Centre. And I do feel it's important to mention at this point, because this sometimes gets missed, that while Send a Child to Hucklow is a Unitarian charity, there is not a formal religious element to the holidays. It is intended just as a holiday and a break. The Unitarian elements are that it's a charity and Hucklow itself is a Unitarian building. But this is not a religious retreat for children. It is a holiday and a break for them and a chance to be children and enjoy themselves. The original appeal to readers raised £61. My maths isn't good enough to convert that into what that equivalent would have been 60 odd years ago, but it was sufficient to send a party of children from Manchester for a holiday at Hucklow. Since then, groups have come from as far away as London, Glasgow, Isle of Wight, Northern Ireland, metropolitan areas in the north and the Midlands, and many, many more. Over the past 60 years then, thousands of children have benefited greatly from the holidays. Some have found their asthma slightly better, some have found new friends, some have shown improvements in their behaviour, some have enjoyed a break from their responsibilities at home. All have been introduced to a new way of living and new opportunities that we hope will influence their lives forever, and that will show them what may be possible beyond the bounds of everyday life. The feedback in their own words, which we heard earlier, read by Diana, lifts up our hearts year after year. One 17-year-old girl who would be older than many of the children sent to Bucklow, they are usually younger children, who was returning to visit her old primary school to talk about their experiences there when she had gone on one of the holidays, said, "That week at Hucklow had been the best week of my life." The trustees of the Send a Child to Hucklow Fund are particularly delighted that in this year, 2022, a group of young carers accepted the offer of a holiday, although sadly COVID concerns and vulnerable families have now put that on hold until next year, a timely reminder that COVID has not gone away and we all still need to be careful of the most vulnerable among us and watch for each other's health. But we hope that that group of young carers will get a chance to go to Great Hucklow in 2023. It's the ministers and the people in our congregations and their friends who have made all this possible by raising the hundreds of thousands of pounds to keep these holidays for children going. This year, the fund will send a record number of 16 groups to Hucklow, over 300 children. Over the years, money has been raised in many and widely various ways. There have been raffles, carol singing, fortunately not by me, people pay not to hear me sing, concerts, harvest auctions, coffee mornings, I'm better at that, preaching fees, bequests, gifts in memory of loved ones and friends, donations in lieu of flowers or gifts on people's special occasions, grants from charitable organisations, sponsored walks, runs and cycle rides, all of them imaginative and heartfelt efforts, all of them much appreciated. I hope, he says, it is not complacent to take pride in the substantial funds raised by such a small denomination, which we are, which match the multi-million-pound infrastructure of some of the mainstream churches. This is a charity with minimal administration costs, as it depends on willing volunteers. And at this point, I must insert a notice. You will notice on the order of service that there are some details for people to make a donation to Hucklow should you feel the need. That is in place of any collection we might have had. If you wish to leave money at the back, I will put out a collection plate. Please do not feel obligated, give as you will and as you can. I am donating my own service fee for this service. In celebrating the work of this admirable charity, which relies on everyone's continuing generosity, I want to repeat the sentiments of a familiar traditional hymn, which goes, "Scorn not the slightest word or deed, nor deem it void of power. There's fruit in each wind-wafted seed that waits its natal hour. No act falls fruitless, none can tell how vast its power may be, nor what results enfolded dwell within it silently." As Sydney Smith said, it's the greatest of all mistakes to do nothing because you can only do a little. Do what you can. Let us all look forward to more holy days and holidays in the summer and wish to Send a Child to Hucklow Fund even more success. May it be so. And now we reach the end of our service. And as I put out the physical flame of the chalice, its light remains within us until we can meet once more in person. And let us close today with these words from Reverend Cliff Reed. May the deeds we do with our hands, and the words we speak with our lips, and the thoughts we think in our minds, and the things we feel in our hearts, be at all times worthy of the divine Spirit within us. Amen.